This is Dan Ferrisi, editor of Sound and Communications Magazine. Happy to be joined this afternoon by Alesia Hendley, multimedia journalist and AV maven throughout the commercial AV industry, very prominent AV tweet community member. Thanks for joining us, Alesia.
Oh, Dan, I'm so happy to finally catch up with you and be able to chat a little bit.
Likewise. Now, you have a lot going on personally in the industry. You've embarked on some new multimedia journalism ventures. So let's talk to start about your brand new podcast. And I know that's exclusive content that is yours, that you're doing really entirely on your own. So talk about that.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this podcast. I mean, a lot of people see me do quite a few other podcasts along my journey so far, but I'm very excited about my new podcast because I completely own the content, as you said, and I can really harness the content from any point of view that I choose to. So that is the main thing I'm excited about. Get to harness and craft and publish my own content. And with this podcast, it's called Crash Pad because the idea is I can have all of my colleagues and peers come in and talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And right now, it's really focused on case studies that are driven by creativity, and technology is kind of that supporting cast that comes in and helps a brand or helps an artist. So I am bridging my love of technology and creatives and just arts in general and bring it together all on this podcast and just having a bunch of different individuals come and talk about their process and why they create certain things the way they create that and the technology that they use to drive that experience. So I'm excited.
So when you talk about different kind of case studies that you might be exploring, would an example be, for example, the Van Gogh Live Museum? Are you thinking about kind of venue-based applications or traveling touring shows, or could it be pretty much anything? I mean, I know that the podcast is still kind of in its infancy, so it may grow and expand. But what's the vision? Are you thinking venue-based? Are you thinking traveling?
So that's one thing that I can have that wide, broad scope, right? Because I own the content again. But you'll see a variety of different kind of case studies. So in the next episode that's coming out here in a few weeks, you'll see Sansi Displays, and we talk about a installation that they did at the San Francisco Art Museum that isn't permanent. And then I've had Samsung on to discuss the platform that they were a part of for the New Year's Eve experience in the middle of COVID. And, there's just a bunch of different case studies. You'll see some that are venue based as well. But really each experience or each venue, no matter whether it's permanent or a pop-up kind of shop style, it will be driven by an experience, right? Where we fully immerse ourselves into that and help brands really bring their stories to life. So it's give and choose. If it's something that excites me, I'm like, yes, let's talk about it, please.
And experience is totally the name of the game these days. I mean,
Oh
we
yeah.
are an experience industry. I like to say that our job isn't necessarily to be integrators or anything like that. It's to be smile generators and memory makers and
Yeah.
just leave an indelible impression on people. So let's talk about another experience I know both you and I are looking forward to, which is InfoComm this coming
Yeah.
October in Orlando. By that point, I think fingers crossed, we should be in good shape for in-person events again. People are getting vaccinated, which is a very good thing. What are your feelings about returning to in-person events for the AV Tweeps community and just for the welfare of commercial AV?
I mean, we're all sitting on the edge of our seats, ready to get back out and have a couple of drinks and just have that, peer-to-peer interaction in person. Like we're all ready for it. But the fact of how we do that safely is where we're kind of, torn on what that looks like. And as vaccines continue to roll out, it makes a situation towards the end of the year look a little bit different from what it looks like now, right? As far as large gatherings. So I am very, very excited because it's going to be in Orlando, which is like right in my backyard, of course. And I've had a lot of conversations this week, and mostly everyone that I've talked to is excited about, the in-person events coming back, not only from a sales perspective, but a networking perspective, just getting back to something that we're used to, getting out, hanging out with everybody. So it's an exciting time. It just feels different in the conversations I've been having. Everybody's like, things are revving back up. We're excited about InfoComm and all these plans are coming together. So I really hope there's not like a huge wave of COVID we're going to have to worry about after we get through the summer. But fingers crossed, I'm extremely hopeful.
Yeah, I feel much the same way. I mean, there are some signs right now of a wave kind of increasing, but I feel like we're getting to that point where the herd immunity is going to keep it down to certainly below where it was in that third wave. And I'm feeling good and positive and optimistic about it. And also, it seems like the Orange County Convention Center and Avixa itself are going to take a lot of measures to make sure it's a safe
Right.
environment. But I completely agree with you that as much as the virtual events and the virtual meetups have been good and productive, and it's kind of
Yeah.
kept us sane during this year of lockdowns,
Right.
it's just not quite the same synergy and mind meld of being together, whether it's hanging out at a bar or going to a press conference or whatever it is, just walking the show floor. I feel like we're all just dying to kind of reconnect with each other face to face and learn from each other and build with each other and kind of come up with these crazy ideas with each other. I think that's what we want.
Oh yeah, and I'm dying to bring back some AV fashion. I'm ready to get out of my sweats and t-shirts and put on my suits and just hang out with everybody and really just have that feel of being out and getting back to a little bit of what we're used to. Because I don't, a lot of things aren't going to go back to normal, and that's why people are starting to use the pre-COVID, post-COVID, even though we are still in the middle, technically, of a pandemic. So I'm excited to see what comes next, but I'm really hopeful that the show will happen and we can all get back together and enjoy some good food and some drinks and, just reconnect.
Can't wait for it. So speaking of what comes next, this wouldn't be an AV centered video interview if I didn't talk a little bit about technology at least.
Yeah.
So let's talk about AV over IP, which I think is at the tip of a lot of people's tongues. I know you were on an SDVOE podcast about a week or so ago, talking to Justin about AV over IP.
Yep.
So what are you hearing right now? What are you seeing out in the field, and what are the trends that our readers should be apprised of and our viewers should be apprised of?
I mean, in our industry, it's so fascinating that this whole AV IT debate is actually still going on. Like when I first, found pretty much started getting my groove in the AV industry, we had been, all of our gear was connected to the network in some form or fashion for years. And I think now we need to kind of stop having that debate, figure out how we further partner with each other, whether that is, partnering or becoming a member of the SDVOE or finding, connecting with teams that are more versed in the IT language to partner with. Either way, we need to start partnering so we can foster better relationships, which ultimately is going to create stronger installations because our AV over IP systems cannot live without strong networks. And focusing on the design beforehand, opposed to it being something that's a reactive kind of thing, which is what we've done so far. I think that is going to be a tremendous help to pushing our industry forward and capitalizing on the AV over IP solutions that are on the market currently.
I remember from my college science and philosophy classes that the term non-overlapping magisteria, which is to say that science is in one area, religion is in another. But I think in this case, AV and IT are absolutely overlapping magisteria. There's no separating them anymore. If you're going to be a successful AV practitioner these days, working in whether it's a corporate environment or a government environment or an education environment, you need to be IT savvy. You need to speak the language of IT. And I think IT professionals increasingly are going to find themselves dealing with AV consultants and AV integrators. So I think all of us really collectively need to up our game and increase our fluency, our conversance in these different languages and these different disciplines.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I made the pivot personally, as far as my, my career. I realized that I had to learn this language because when our IT team came in and our AV team is there, we didn't understand each other's language, right? It seemed like it was just a foreign language when either one of our teams were trying to communicate about what we were trying to do. And I saw that everything was taking a digital turn, from soundboards to lighting boards. Digital signage is now connected to networks. And especially as we move into hybrid work environments, we are going to have to be very focused on networking. So if anything, I'm excited to see our industry kind of stop the debate and find ways to partner. So that way we have this kind of value add from our industry that we can provide our end users to really create successful installations from the IT side all the way to the AV that's living on that project.
Absolutely. You used the word partner. I know that you've been a very generous partner throughout the commercial AV industry, working with different publishers and trying to, give your insights and your wisdom where possible. So if people want to partner with you, want to talk to you, want to learn from you, want to connect with you, what are the best ways they can do that?
Oh man, I guess the best way is on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, second best way is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been an extremely useful tool, especially through COVID. I've been engaging with a lot of people who aren't on Twitter, and really having those one-on-one conversations about anything, whether that's digital signage, AV over IP, podcasting, social media. There's just so many different ways to connect. But first of all, you can always get me on social, whether that's Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, at The Smooth Factor. And if you don't have any social platforms, you can always go to my website and send me an email that way, thesmoothfactor.com.
And if they don't have email, they can send you a long letter, right? By post.
If they don't have email, I mean, I don't really know what to tell you at this point. Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe look me up in the phone book, but I don't think that really exists anymore. So,
are you in the white pages?
No,
No.
what? I'm not in the white pages. Is that a thing still?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that, because a lot of your readers might not be on social or are used to the print, from as we continue to go through the digital transition, right? So that's a good point. But if you don't use email, I don't know how you work, because you have to, maybe you got fax machines, but I don't have a fax number either. So
no fax, no snail mail, no fax. So
yeah, none of that.
At least get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn, and look for The Smooth Factor.
There we go.
And up your email game. Make sure it's not just an AOL address.
Right.
All right. Well, it was good to talk to you, Alesia. Thanks so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you this coming October at InfoComm. And I hope you have a lot of success with your podcast, and I'll be tuning in.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate you having me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you and getting back together and, hanging out with you and John. So I'll see you soon.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You too.